All right, Amy, we're getting that holiday feel here in the nation's capital. The White House Christmas tree rolled up about 20 minutes ago. The First Lady was on hand to welcome the tree today, delivered from Corson's Tree Farms in Sydney Township, Michigan. What happens tomorrow, though, is the big one. There's a suite at the historic Willard Hotel that's currently being lined with plastic sheeting as if it were a scene from the TV show Dexter. But this is not a murder scene. It is not for a dead body. It's not a crime scene. It is the temporary home of the next two Americans to be pardoned. And yes, they are turkeys. If you're with us on YouTube, nice job, CC. She saw me coming. CC in New York, our video producer, with the turkey beauty shots from the White House and pardons passed. So they're going to have these guys up there. You know, they do this every year. In fact, there is a bit of a contest on X to name the turkeys. The First Lady is up on Twitter with Gobble and Waddle very clearly leading the pack. We had Sugar and Spice, Pumpkin and Pie, Acorn and Squash. It does appear that Gobble and Waddle at 40.6% will carry the day. You've got till, well, sorry, the deadline's already up. So I guess they won. Now, the question, of course, is about what happens after. And I was talking to Nathan Dean. He's going to be on with us in just a moment. You might want to block the kids' ears if you're driving in the car right now, because the headline at Politico says it all. Most turkeys live only a few months after a presidential pardon. What? You thought these guys were going out to pasture like Thanos in the open field watching the sun set every night? No, their knees are buckling and their hearts are stopping, because the pardoned turkeys are made so plump and so beautiful that they're obese, and they don't tend to live that long. Yeah, Amy, really, a couple of months. They don't even get to the 1 year point. They go to live out the rest of their days at Gobbler's Rest at Virginia Tech. At least that was the case for peas and carrots. I don't think they got to the end of the season, guys. Wild turkeys generally live 3 to 5 years. These guys barely make it to 1. Now, we had Wishbone and Drumstick, Tater and Tot, Abe and Honest. Only Tater, and I'd love to know how these reporters found this, pardoned by Barack Obama in 2016, exceeded all expectations by living for 2 years. So basically, the pardoned turkeys are like middle-aged white guys, and they're all about to die of a heart attack. Nathan Dean at Bloomberg Intelligence, am I about right?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of our clients were actually talking about whether or not Gobble or Waddle were going to win. And I think some of the South Floridians were in here because Waddle's winning. And I think it's Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins. But lots of important work going on.
Is this a done deal? Did Waddle win?
I think they're trying to figure out which one is going to be pardoned now, because one gets the official and then the other one gets the supplemental. Yeah. But lots of things it's a high risk stake at this point.
Yeah, this is really, honestly, I guess you go out in a blaze of glory, either in the Friolator or at, what is it, Gobbler's Rest? Yeah, Elizabeth, quite literal name for the resting place there. Cece says this is shocking. I didn't know about it until I have to say it was Nathan. We were talking about this whole pardon and how it's going to work out, what happens at the Willard. Nathan says, did you know these guys die in a couple of months after? Seems like it's for a good cause, though, to be honest with you.
It keeps us excited this week.
Last year's pardoned turkeys, Peach and Blossom, and the ones before them, Liberty and Belle, all came from Minnesota, and I'll be curious to meet their owners tomorrow. Short of a turkey pardon, will we get a health care plan? Is the question today. How come I'm reading that's going to happen this week? Is that real?
Well, so Bloomberg is reporting that President Trump may be offering up its own plan in terms of Obamacare subsidy extensions. We talked about this in the past about original take is that it was going to be extremely difficult to do. Mm-hmm. The Republican desire to do this up on Capitol Hill isn't really there. But President Trump, I think, recognizes that there are a lot of voters in the Virginia, New Jersey elections that have started thinking about affordability and this idea of Obamacare premiums going up. It's not a great political message in 2026. So if President Trump does float this idea, the question that I have, and I was talking to my colleague Dwayne Wright, who's writing about this for The Terminal,
excellent.
The biggest question we have is, what are the add-ons to this deal? And are those add-ons enough to dissuade Democrats? Because look, you are going to get the Democrats. And if President Trump comes out in here and says, here's the deal, we're okay with the Democrats here, here's the deal, we think he ultimately gets past the Hastert rule in the House and can tell the House Republicans to vote. But again, I don't think it's happening this week. I think President Trump floats the plan and pushes it out before he goes to Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving. And then we'll have to see in early December how this ultimately plays out.
But this is a patch, right? This isn't Trump care, the alternative. This is a way to extend the existing plan.
This is a way to kick the issue beyond the midterm 2026 elections so that they can debate this another day.
All right. That said, John Thune promised a vote in the Senate. That's how we got the government reopened, right? Does Speaker Johnson want anything to do with this, or is it foregone that this would get a House vote?
I don't think you're going to see Speaker Johnson really opine on this until he gets direction from the White House. Because if you were to give Speaker Johnson truth serum and he talks to his base, look, I don't think the House Republicans have any desire outside of some moderates that are in more purple swing districts. I think the bulk of the Republican base of the House essentially doesn't want this to actually occur, and they're fine with the subsidies going away. But, there are some Republicans out there who are thinking more about affordability and more about things getting done. Marjorie Taylor Greene just tweeted out about 5-10 minutes ago, responding to a lot of news articles today about how she just wants to get things done. And it's just very difficult to do in this environment. So I think what happens here is that if President Trump comes out and says, we're good with this is my plan to extend it, the Democrats somehow get on board, then I think those House Republicans say, let's kick the can and let's deal with it in 2 years.
This would prevent presumably another government shutdown at the end of January, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest. There's two issues that could bring a shutdown, and we don't think there's a decent chance. We're at a 30% chance of a shutdown in January.
You got odds on this.
Yeah, we've got long-term odds, but odds with two major caveats. The one is that if this issue isn't resolved, and the Democrats think that it's a winning message to fight for this again in January, and the other one is that if you see additional rescission packages coming from the White House, because I've said this before, it takes 60 votes to appropriate, it takes 50 votes in the Senate to rescind, and that equation just does not work when you're talking about making deals and then breaking those deals. But outside of that, no politician, I think, wants to shut down in January. It's an election year. They want to focus on other things.
You're running odds on the turkeys?
No, not.
There's no gobble, no waddle?
I'm going to go with
BI?
waddle.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm going to go with waddle.
There's no official BI odds on this.
No.
Because, producer James put this in front of us. Polymarket is not picking a waddle over a gobble. But we have 68% odds that a turkey will audibly gobble during the pardon tomorrow. Don't they always gobble?
Ooh, I'm not sure.
68%.
That's pretty high.
I feel like I'd go with a good 98% on that.
I'm going to be watching live go.
Yeah. Okay, so that said, we avoid a shutdown. Is there an agenda to pursue once we get through this funding fiasco, or are you going to start talking to me about the debt ceiling next?
So I think what it comes down to is that the early part of 2026 is going to be more sector-specific legislation. Crypto's the biggest one. Obviously, we've seen a lot of developments. We have a bipartisan discussion draft both at the Senate Banking and at the Senate Ag Committee in terms of crypto legislation. I think there's a decent chance for that. But for the rest of this big picture idea of legislation, 2026 is a story of deregulation and executive orders. It's not a story of legislation. Because when the primary season kicks off in March, all 435 members of the House and 1/3 of the Senate, they don't want to be here because every day they're here in Washington, their opponents are campaigning against them, and they're not going to be focused on legislation. Now, some stuff can happen. I think that you're going to see some headline risk about some bills and so forth. So we're not saying the store's closed.
Right, sure.
But for these big ticket items like Reconciliation 2.0, I just don't see the votes there.
How about that?
And so I think it's a story of deregulation because the regulators can continue to operate without Democrats or really the midterms impacting them all that much.
Well, I ask because it's not going to be easy for Speaker Johnson or for Republicans to maneuver. Punchbowl did some math this morning that was fascinating with a couple of decisions that are looming that might not be on a lot of people's radars. Right? We've got 219 to 213 right now, Republicans and Democrats. There's a special election in Tennessee on December 2nd to fill former Rep. Mark Green's seat. Democrats are hoping they can flip it. They'll gain a seat in Houston at the end of January when voters choose Sylvester Turner's replacement. On April 16, New Jersey voters have to replace Mikey Sherrill, of course, the new governor. And let's say that Democrats are on the table here, including that seat that I mentioned in Tennessee. Johnson would have 218 members to Democrats 214. We'd be back to a sub 5. Texas and New Jersey would bring Democrats to 216. So now you're one cold or a flu away from the majority completely disappearing. And
you haven't even mentioned Punch Bowl's point is that the other Republicans could be considering retirements.
That's right.
Early retirements.
So what do you do if you're Mike Johnson? I guess it's a good thing it's the midterm cycle, so you can win some seats.
I think what happens here is in the first half of this year, before people turn into election campaign mode, is you start having votes on legislation. You start having votes on things like, just various different votes that, individuals want to bring to the floor to try and say that at least they tried. Because remember, I don't think you're going to get any legislation done prior to midterm election within the 6 to 9 months. I'd say that for any election.
Yeah.
But at least you can allow folks to get the idea out onto the floor, and you can get the idea to fester so that maybe after the midterms they can come back and actually work on this more.
Okay.
But if you follow the prediction markets, right now, it's about a 70 to 75% chance the Democrats take the House. Yeah. We've worked with gridlock before. We may have gridlock again for the second half of the Trump administration.
Better odds than a turkey gobble tomorrow at the pardon. This is going to be another wild couple of weeks here, so you better stay close to us. Are you traveling or are you cooking? What's the deal for Thanksgiving?
We are just hosting at home.
You are, aren't you? See, America's Dad could only be hosting on Thanksgiving. Do you carve the turkey in your house?
No, but I am forcing my kids to do another turkey trot that morning.
Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. They are not happy about it.
When you say another,
we did one yesterday.
Okay, great. It didn't go well.
My daughter was screaming how much she disliked it the entire last.
Fantastic. All right. Lastly, you do the canned cranberry sauce with the ridges, or the homemade one that you actually spoon out of the bowl?
I'm a canned person.
You are,
and my wife is not, and so
we
do
both on the table at the Dean House. All right. I'll think of some others. Maybe you should file questions for Nathan Dean for Thanksgiving, and we'll have them answered for you here on the program. Multiple turkey trots. Yeah, Cece. This guy's a despot. Nathan Dean, Bloomberg Intelligence, thank you as ever. We'll assemble our panel next. We haven't even talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Stay with us right here on Bloomberg.